The belief that supply and demand will determine price is perhaps the most fundamental tenet of a market economy. But even if you concede that that belief is universally true, you must also concede that its fruition is a matter of time. And time can make all the difference, particularly in oil markets. Here, demand can drop sharply at a moment's notice. The declinations typically follow shocks to the global economy, much like they did after the financial crisis of 2007. But the opposite isn't necessarily true. After demand falls, it tends to rise slowly as the economy recovers from whatever compelled it to fall in the first place. Oil demand simply cannot solve the problems created by grossly oversupplied oil markets, at least not as quickly as producers would probably like. Those producers will have to wait for demand to recover on its own accord. What will fuel that recovery, more than anything else, is the continued growth of the global middle class, which is expanding in China, India, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and some parts of Africa. After all, larger populations with comparatively higher incomes tend to consume more goods and services that require the use of oil. Environmental considerations will also play a role. Over the past 20 years, commitments toward carbon emissions have changed profoundly, as have the attitudes toward climate change more generally. Those will change further still in the next 20 years, starting perhaps at the Paris Summit, where world leaders hope to strike a deal on environmental targets. Some of those targets will surely govern the automotive industry, which is set to grow as the global middle class matures. Estimates suggest the influx of new cars could add 30 million barrels to the world's daily consumption of oil, but those estimates will be tempered by the fact that new fleets will be composed of cars with increasingly better fuel efficiency. Still, demand for oil will nonetheless increase in several markets, particularly China, India, and the Middle East, where important developments are already underway. China has begun to refashion its oil sector into something more befitting the economy it is trying to create. India set lofty goals in its proposals at the Paris Summit, but it will struggle to meet them without foreign assistance. And the Middle East, taken altogether, has enormous demand potential. Iran, Egypt, and Turkey alone have a combined population of more than 200 million people, many of whom will soon belong to a burgeoning middle class. In our December 2015 issue of Compass, we explore how new technologies, new environmental initiatives, and new markets will affect oil demand, and explain why demand will rise more slowly than other markets are accustomed to. The issue publishes December 7th.